Guys, welcome. Bullying bad ideas. That's what we're here to do together. We make sure good gets through that semi-permeable membrane that's your psyche. All of the junk information that's out there doesn't get in. The bad ideas. We go so hard on those, we bully them out. Go to CoachJohanCSCS.com. There you're going to find tools. Play around with those tools. Get familiar with your body and your eating. Use the calculator free. I've been doing this a long time. I've been into a couple of gyms. I've had to change jobs a couple of times, but I remember a time where walking into my new gym, ready to work my new job, made me excited. And by the end of the gym tour, however, that day, my future in fitness flashed in front of me. With all hope eroding fast, I hope to make the best of that situation. But this was less a gym that I had been walking into and more of a fitness museum. The Nautilus machines everywhere looked off the gym floor of 1977's pumping iron, turquoise, fuchsia. It was everywhere, either on the trim of the doorways or inside the weight room on the 10-foot cursive logo that was painted on the wall. Then I noticed the telltale of every gym fossil record as I walked through the hallway. There I found a squash ball laying isolated, so I picked it up. I launched that thing across the floor. It hit the acrylic wall and it echoed violently. Later that night, the normally bone-empty gym bustled with hexo and septuagenarians, yes, older folks, lining the walls like they were getting ready to play Mortal Kombat in the arcades in 1994. They were unknowingly slapping Father Time in the face with each swing of the rackets. Friends, your health starts to decline earlier than you might have thought. According to a 47-year longitudinal study that just kind of dropped, sarcopenia, which is your muscles basically atrophying of the muscle, followed this study of about 500 people. They were aged from 16 to 63, so I guess some of them are dead now, and found that aerobic capacity and muscle endurance peaked between 26 and 36 years old. You guys at 35, oh, you're like me. We're ringing the death knell. A steady decline happened and accelerated the further away you got from 35. So that's why we're here now. We need to talk about what you guys need to do. 2 simple exercises boiled down to maybe 1 workout to slow the decline. Funny enough, one of these single training regimens I'm about to mention is booming in popular opinion right now and might just keep you young. Guys, today, know that it's a very bad idea to adopt only zone 2 typed cardio and light ass weightlifting as your workouts for life, because the things that drop harder with age are your VO2max and your power, kind of your overall strength. Basically, friends, if you want to stay young, lift heavy, demand your heart keep up with your pace. If I can boil it down to just 1 simple sentence, that would be it. I don't need a doctorate. I don't need a medical license. Just that sound piece of advice. What's scary is, over the years, I told you I've been doing this for a long time. I got to be honest. That's the workout that the aunties and the older empty nesters used to ask me for all the time. They'd come in and say things like, okay, let's lift weights. And they'd do kind of a arm shuffle like this with the weights. And they'd be like, okay, so we can start with these like 8-pounders. And it's not their fault. I'm not mocking. What I am saying is that was out there in the ether. Light lifting gets you toned, which tone isn't even a real thing. Tone is the tension applied to a muscle or like a blood vessel. It has nothing to do with the look of your muscles. So tone isn't a real thing. What you're saying is lean. A lot of aunties used to be like, we're doing this, right? And I'm glad that that paradigm has shifted. It's now we lift hard. We get that gas tank burning. Older aunties, older empty nesters stop asking me. Not that I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm just saying I'm glad that that shifted because that used to be a thing. You guys are tricked. Pilates too. I've always said to mix that reformer stuff in. Listen, I teach it. And I want you guys to know it's not the be all end all. It's not the period at the end of the paragraph for your life. It's a piece of it because just doing that alone, it's proven it's not going to be longevity. And the wearables, they're telling you when you're ready to go. You know how I know you guys are ready to go? You're awake, you're breathing, and you're not injured. You're those three things. I'm assessing my readiness, not with tech, not with your pulse, with the whites of my eyes, with my eyeballs. I'm going to be like, yeah, we're ready. And if we're ready, we're getting busy. Okay, this isn't like a juxtaposition. Stop hating being tired. Be tired. It's okay. I know. Someone's gonna say something like a quick joke in the break room, and you're gonna miss it over your head, and everyone's gonna think you're stupid and talk crap about you behind your back because you're tired. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Stop avoiding your fatigue here in the gym if you're watching on video. Be tired. Grind, huff and puff. Turn to someone next to you. Give them the doe eyes that say, yo, do you need to call me an ambulance or not? If you're not there, science is telling you something. It's telling you that that's the first to go, that VO2. It means you're pushing your VO2max. So the doughy eyes aren't help me. It's I'm grinding. Where are you at? You need to be in that space in the gym. The study showed that VO2max and bench press peaked at, like I said, about 26 to 36 years old, and then declined like a fraction of a percent every year after that. So 35 was the average age where all of that stuff started to decline, where you can kind of just be doing your thing in physical up until about 35. And then it's like, oh, okay, now everything starts to go downhill. You didn't have to try as hard as you did before that. That's maybe less than middle aged in today's society. The total drop from peak to about 63 is up to 48%. So that means at your best, you were bench pressing 200 pounds and 48% of that at 63 if you don't do anything to mitigate that. So to lose about half your strength over the course of the last half of your life, like you don't have to let it happen. So you need to be active. And in adulthood, if you start later on, like close to 30, you actually you push that whole scale over to the right by around 5 to 10%. Meaning if you start later, you have a better chance of keeping the decline, the slope of decline. Like if going down a hill on a snowboard and you don't know how to snowboard, you wish that steep slope would level off, right? That decline would level off. It starts to level off if you start later on, probably because things like injuries that make it harder for you to work out closer to that 35-year-old range. Power, it peaked earlier in women than men. And yes, my friends, contrary to like every boxing commentary you've ever heard in your life that I've been told, that I believed up until I researched this, power is the first thing to ghost you. Power that you build here in the gym. So fighting is different, right? Because there is a decline with age post 35 that kind of magnifies, multiplies itself over time. It's still declining, but power is the last thing to leave in the fight space. That's why Foreman was able to get those knockouts, right? That's why you see older people still being able to fight with power, but it's declining power. How much power did Foreman have when he was 20 then, right? And then, so the idea that it's the last thing to go when fighting, it's the first thing to go when you're talking about pure physical gains. Remember that. Listen, it's about training your ceiling. You want heavy strength. You want VO2 level intensity. That's the amount of oxygen from each pump of your heart each pull of your lungs that can saturate your blood, which contribute to your what? Your aerobic capacity. That's your VO2 max. So that ceiling needs to be pushed up. So strength and heavy, which starts to decline heavily, a little bit of power exposure, pretty dope. And that VO2 max. Keep them things really, really high, and you'll start aging backwards like old boy from that movie. Make yourself younger by doing these things right here. So we were going to boil all of this down into one cheesecake of advice. What we would say is heavy, right? We want strength gains. We want to push that power up. Maybe a trap bar deadlift, working your grip. Maybe a front squat. Heavy sets that require a full rest. We're talking 3, 4, 5 in the weight room. So that has to be part of everything that you do all the time. I have my core 4, back squat, deadlift, overhead press, bench press. But yes, it includes deadlift. If we can just wrap that all up, right, and have a slice of that cheesecake right there, we say, hey, heavy deadlifts. Trap bar maybe even. For VO2 max, you got to start thinking about doing something like hill runs or hill sprints before or after you lift. I got into doing those. They're brutal, but this is the type of huffing and puffing that you need to teach your heart, I'm still here. You got heart. I want to be on display right now. I need to be pushed. And it's something like a hill sprint. It can be a 4x4 or a 5x5, 5 rounds, 5 minutes of hard intensity where you get close, kind of like a hit type interval. That's what you need in order to push that VO2. And as I sit here and think about that, what does that sound like? What includes like hill run type stuff and repetitive grip strength and, heavy lifting? What is that? It's not CrossFit. You guys were thinking CrossFit, weren't you? Not quite, right? Like a little bit because you got the rower in there, but it sounds a lot like that Hyrox. So that's why you guys are doing these things. That's why it's so popular, because unbeknownst to you consciously, your doctor was probably prescribing that you do this. And you're like, well, where can I get everything in at once? Let me train for this competition. Let me meet up with my squad. Hyrox. So there's a lot of older people doing a Hyrox and stuff like that in the competitions. They have age groups in the 70s and apparently in the 80s. I can't imagine. You like show up and you win, right? You show up and it's like, oh, Blanche couldn't make it. She's in the home. So you win, you know what I mean? It's kind of like being a super heavyweight, trying out for Golden Gloves. You just show up over 232 pounds and they go, anybody want to mess with this guy? No? All right, you win. But it just goes to show, like, there's not an 80-plus boxing circuit. There's a masters, but it's not going to 70 years old. And the reason is that Hyrox, it seems that if you mimic a workout regimen, with variations, right? I talked about in another episode recently what my perfect type of collection of exercises would be to mimic one of these races. If you do the things that you get in the Hyrox, right? That ski erg where you're doing really hard pulls and then calming down the heart rate. And then another really hard pull and calming down, kind of like that rower. It mimics like that assault bike that I used to love to torture myself on. Stuff like that, where the heart rate shoots up and then you get a little rest, but it's still elevated. You call that a hit interval, but it's a little bit more than that, because after all of that, you get a rest. Doing that, doing heavy lifts, working your grip, these things, all while pushing that VO2 as high as humanly possible, is what's going to get you there and keep you young. So what's the age? Is 35, and I'm past that, but I've hoped, just like you guys I know we're doing, that I'm shifting that over to the right. And my 35 will be 45. The 45 will be the new 35. And To be fair, a lot of even competitive athletes, single sport athletes have always been able to go a little bit longer than competitive team athletes, but we're seeing all of our professional athletes, right? I think Holly Holm just had a fight and she's got to be like, 67? She's like 45. Sancha is still fighting at 45. I mean, didn't Aaron Rodgers play football at 58 or whatever? These guys are all older and they're still out here getting after it. So this study again was from they started in the 60s. There's no way to tell, like, what if they started it in the 80s or even today, what it'd be like. But chances are, aside from just recovery being really good, we have figured it out. Maybe that's why someone say, hey, Hyrox, I'll name a competition after a cookie. That's Hydrox, I think. And anyway, let's pull the sled. Let's pull the little ropey things. And let's get out here and do those 3 things. Mainly 2, which is that VO2max has got to be up. Your heart has to pump hard up to a 9 or a 10 or a 9 on the RPE. That means where you're almost having to stop, right? So that's VO2max. And then working pretty damn heavy, working your power short bursts, max intensity for bouts. Those 2 things, my friends, that will help push your age of decline on a little later. So let me know where you're at on that spectrum. Let's bully another bad idea that we're just out here keeping it really, really light and easy and not sweating, even if you're 50, 60 and beyond. All right, my friends? Hey, and I'll see you tomorrow. Until the next one, stay up.